That's okay.
Failed. Okay, recording has started, everybody. Just to let you know, we will post this to our YouTube page. And so everybody, there's probably going to be lots of viewers after the fact.
Okay, very good. So thank you again for letting me come and speak to you here. I was kind of overcome when I walked in here because it feels like not very long ago that I was in here studying for AP US history. And if I shaved my beard, I'm sure everyone here would be questioning whether or not I was in juvenile court as a lawyer or as a defendant.
Why I grew a beard as well.
Yeah. Okay, so why am I here? If I'm such a young kid, why? How do I have the authority or ability to tell anybody how they should interact with the law or what is the best strategy? Well, just by way of a little backstory, I graduated law school into the global pandemic, and for a short amount of time, everyone stopped going to work, and so I could not find a job. And then about a third of the workforce really stopped going to work because they retired. And so I could really find a job. And one of the jobs that I really found was I became a Wayne County prosecutor. Normally, when young law school graduates become prosecutors, they start in traffic court, right? And they handle civil infractions and noise violations and things like that. Well, I was tossed in, and by the end of my third year, I had handled over 1,000 major felony cases.
Wow.
Cases that normally take about 10 years to build up to. About 25% of those cases were juvenile cases. I handled everything in juvenile court from truancy all the way up to homicide. So when I was a juvenile prosecutor, I saw three different types of parents make mistakes. The first one is not the type of parent that would be in a media center or on Zoom at 7 p.m. on a weeknight. It's the parent that unfortunately happens far too frequently and is very sad, but just does not care about their child. We don't have anyone here that fits that description. Now, the second group of parents that I saw make mistakes was a group of parents that was under the impression that it's just not that big of a deal to get in trouble as a kid because the long-term consequences just aren't there. It's true that in the state of Michigan, all of your juvenile record, assuming that you don't commit some seriously heinous crimes, gets expunged automatically. It gets taken off of your record automatically after a period of years, depending upon the crime. So people don't take it as seriously. And I'm sorry, if I could ask, would you mind going 2 slides ahead?
Yes, I will.
So I'm watching Modern Family right now, and there's a joke where Gloria kind of takes this approach. And so I want to start by kind of dispelling that notion because the consequences can be very severe for a juvenile adjudication, even though they could ultimately be expunged. Number one, you would have to put any juvenile adjudications on college applications. If your child does not want to go to college, they would have to put any juvenile adjudications on a job application, or if they go to college, graduate, and are applying for a job, they probably have to disclose it at that time too. The long-term ramifications can be very severe, but the immediate punishment can also be very severe. So judges in juvenile court have the authority to place an individual on probation, which is oftentimes your best result. Sometimes there are certain crimes that require immediate expulsion from school. Judges also have the discretion to place children in what's effectively a foster home, or even a place that's a juvenile detention facility like Children's Village. If they have happen to be in the Wayne County Juvenile Detention Facility, for my money, there's no worse place in the state of Michigan. So there are some very real consequences to juvenile adjudications. And that second group, needs to recognize that. But again, I don't think that there's really anyone who would even fall into that group at this meeting. I think that there might be some parents who fall into the third group at this meeting. And that third group is parents who really want to do the right things for their kids, but they aren't entirely sure what that right thing is, right? Because it's not easy understanding the law all the time if you haven't studied the law or you don't live the law on a daily basis. So that's why I'm here, is to talk to that third group, to talk to those parents who are eager to learn about what it is they should tell their kids. And when I say kids, I wanted to define exactly who we're talking about here, because I was having a nice conversation with Sarah before we got started. And she told me that Go Green, she has one of her children is at Michigan State. And so the question is, is that person a juvenile, right? Maybe. So does anybody who's with me here know at what age someone stops becoming a juvenile? Because you get your license at 16, you vote, at 18, you can drink at 21. Where's a juvenile? Does anyone know?
I thought it was 18, but you could be charged depending on the crime or under. I thought that.
Yeah, so it's if you commit a crime prior to your 18th birthday, you are a juvenile. And the state does have the ability to charge you as an adult. Now, does anyone know at what age someone becomes a juvenile, someone begins becoming a juvenile? This is kind of a tougher question.
12. I'm going to $1. No.
11.
You say 12, I'm going to say 10.
I'm gonna say 10. I know the answer because I saw your slide.
Okay. Very good.
17.9999.
So if you could go to the next slide for me. The answer is actually, there's no law that explicitly says at what age the government can start prosecuting, but there's a question as to whether or not someone can understand the ramifications of their actions and the impact that it has on other people. And generally, most prosecutors' offices agree that if you are under the age of 10, you can't meet that requirement, and so they won't prosecute you. But it's important for parents to know, if my child is in middle school, could they be prosecuted? Yes, that's a possibility. If my child is in college, will they be prosecuted as a juvenile or an adult? And hopefully that gives clarity. So let's say, by way of an example here, a hypothetical, mean old Mr. Wicker calls you your child down to the principal's office, as I do, as he does, or at any school, and sitting in the principal's office is a police officer, and that police officer wants to ask your child some questions. Is that okay? I mean, they're a juvenile, they're unsupervised. Can the police officer ask those questions? Surprisingly to some, the answer is yes. That's completely acceptable under the law. A police officer can interrogate your child without you present.
For the record, the Birmingham Public Schools does not do that. We do not have it. If there is a police officer that needs to talk to your son or daughter, we make sure we talk to you first. But it's nice to know that we didn't have to.
Certainly not an accusation. So I'm going to ask you guys to take away a couple of things from my presentation. Number one, if I could ask you to switch the slide, is your child must affirmatively assert the right to remain silent until you arrive if they are being spoken to by a police officer. They have the right to wait, to have their parent come and the parent can be the one to talk to the police officer. But if they don't speak up and say, you need to wait until my mom is here, you need to wait until my dad is here, then the police officer can keep going.
What happens if their birthday is tomorrow and they turn 18? Do they still have to wait for the parent because they're still in school, or is that they can question them?
So it only applies to juveniles.
Okay, so 10.
So it is that's
17.999999.
You got it. That's exactly right. So if you have an 18-year-old who's in school, they are an adult. Now they can still make that same request.
Okay.
But the police officer wouldn't have the same obligation. So once you arrive, what should you do? Assuming that your child follows this instruction, you should probably do the exact same thing. Police officers, they do this on a daily basis, right? It is almost never a good idea for your child or for you to have a conversation with a police officer if your child is under criminal investigation without a lawyer present. It's just a better way to go about it. And normally, if someone hires me and they want me to do it, the approach that I take is, I'm not having a conversation with you either, because I don't want to disclose anything, and neither should you. So what do you tell your kid? Because it's going to feel scary. It's going to feel like they're under a lot of pressure because they're going to be the youngest person in the room. There's probably going to be somebody who's wearing a uniform in the room. It's not going to be easy. Take a deep breath, calm. right? That's takeaway number one. Take a deep breath, call me, don't say anything until I do. So what happens if your child doesn't follow takeaway number one? Well, the good news is, I'm sure everyone here has heard of Miranda rights, right? When you get arrested, the police have to read you those 4 rights. One of those is that you have the right to remain silent. That applies to what's known as in-custody interrogation, okay? So those rights apply if you're an adult or if you're a juvenile, which means that down the line, if it comes to it, a lawyer could file a motion to throw out that statement, whatever your child says, to a police officer. And the good news is there's more protections for juveniles than there are for adults. The younger the juvenile, the more likely it's going to be that a judge will say, that statement was not voluntary. And that's the test. Was it voluntary, or did they feel so pressured by their environment that that's the only reason that they made a statement? Now, of course, we don't want to let it get to that point, so we try and follow takeaway number 1. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what happens if it's not in the principal's office, but your child has an interaction with a police officer, maybe they get pulled over? What if you get pulled over, right? It doesn't matter if you're a juvenile or you're an adult, you should start the same way. The same advice that I'm going to give applies. The way that you should start is always lead with respect, right? Police officers are no different than any of us who are working a job and just have some ups and some downs throughout their workday. You don't want to be a down, because police officers are good at their job. We might have 3 traffic stops in our lifetimes. They have 3 traffic stops per day. They know what they are doing. They know how to cope. And I don't use this word to denigrate them, but they know how to use their words to coerce to get what they want. So what you want to do is you want to be as respectful as possible. You don't want to give them a reason to mess with you, but you also do not want to be respectful to the point that you surrender your rights. And that leads me to takeaway number 2, if I could ask you to switch the slide. Do not surrender your rights, okay? The Constitution of the United States, it guarantees you, it guarantees your child a right to privacy, the right to not be searched without due process. So if an officer pulls you over and says, and I hear this conversation every time I watch body worn camera, anything that I should know about in the car? No? Well, you wouldn't mind if I take a look, would you? Officer, I don't consent to you searching my vehicle. It's that simple. It's an easy thing that you can tell your children to repeat. Now, if your child has something very illegal sitting in the passenger seat, the officer is going to search the car because he can see that there's something illegal. But by your child saying, I do not consent to you searching my vehicle, that does not provide them with any evidence. That statement in itself is not evidence that will allow the police officer to gain entry into the car. Okay? Now the same thing.
If it's sitting on the seat and they pull you out and they put you in handcuffs or whatever and detain you, then they have, if they see it, they have the right to search?
That's true. So that's what's known as, it's an exception to them getting a search warrant, and that's called the plain view exception.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure.
Yes, yeah. So if you've got some sort of contraband that's within plain sight, then they can remove you from the car and they can search the vehicle. Now, you have rights not just about whether they can search your car, but you have rights as to what you have to say to police officers. Obviously, within the realm of my first piece of advice here, be respectful to police officers. You don't want to be unnecessarily combative, but you also want to preserve your rights, right? So a police officer pulls your child over, and your child is coming from a party where there was alcohol or marijuana present. Police officer's second or third question is going to be, where are you coming from tonight? Your child could say, Jenny's house. Or your child could say, in a respectful term, I'm not going to answer that question. I had a friend in high school, Colin O'Keefe, funny enough. He got pulled over.
He turned out okay.
He turned out okay. He got pulled over right in front of his parents' house. And the officer said, where are you coming from tonight? And Colin said, because Colin is bright and indignant. That's not any of your concern.
Oh.
Colin was smart enough to get out of that. I would not be smart enough to get out of being that rude. So if you can find a respectful way to avoid the question or explicitly say that's not something that I want to have a conversation about, you can do that. And just like refusing consent to search the car, it does not provide the officers with any evidence to do anything. Obviously, that has its limitations. Police start giving you lawful orders, you need to follow their lawful orders, right? They see the contraband on the seat and they tell you to get out of the car, you say no and you drive away, well, you're now facing several felonies. It's all a balance. Okay, so I want to now talk about a subject that no one ever wants to talk about, but is incredibly important and perhaps the most important thing that I want to talk about tonight, which is, in Michigan, we call it criminal sexual conduct. And juveniles are a class that are particularly susceptible to being charged with criminal sexual conduct because the age of consent in Michigan is 16 years old. And juvenile ages, individuals age out of the juvenile system at 18 years old. So, with the age of consent being 16 in Michigan, this means that prosecutors can charge anyone who engages in a sexual act with someone who is under the age of 16. Which means if you have two 15-year-olds, both of them could be charged. One of them could be charged. Neither of them could be charged. If you have two 15-year-olds and it's a heterosexual encounter and they charge only the female, that can happen. There's some misillusion or disillusion that only the boy could end up charged. That is not the case. Okay? I had many cases when I was a prosecutor where it was a young woman who was ultimately charged. If I could ask you to go to the next slide, please. So, things that can seem harmless or are meant to be harmless, something as simple as grab-assing, can actually result in a conviction or an adjudication for criminal sexual conduct in the second or fourth degree. Now, it's very important, or I should say it's very common, I see, that type of charge with young men in middle school. So I bring this up to tell all the parents, it's never too early to talk to your kids, especially your sons, about keeping their hands to themselves. Because one kid thinks he's doing something funny in front of another friend. One kid thinks that he's actually trying to be complimentary, and rightfully so, a young woman takes offense, and now you are in a much deeper situation than you ever could have anticipated. So, this is perhaps the least exciting or least enjoyable topic, but perhaps the most important, and that is what's commonly known as child pornography. In Michigan, it's actually termed child sexually abusive material, and child sexually abusive material is any image, photo, video of someone who is under the age of 18 that is distributed for some sort of erotic means. And that means two individuals who are juniors in high school who are in a consensual relationship, 17 years old, that are sending naked pictures of each other back and forth are distributing child pornography.
They don't have to be completely naked, it could be sexual innuendos or sexually prerogative, very
Provocative, yes.
provocative.
However you finish that sentence, the answer is yes. Yep. If it is distributed,
That's right.
if it's distributed or possessed for some sort of erotic means, the answer is yes, it could be considered child pornography in Michigan. So that applies even if the person receiving it is a juvenile as well, and the punishments for this crime are severe. This is the type of situation where the federal government can get involved. I mean, the federal government has real interest in eliminating child pornography. This is the sort of situation where you see children getting charged as adults. The punishments are serious. In the federal system, it is a minimum of 25 years. In the state system, it's between 20 and 25 years maximum, depending upon the facts. So
Is that for distribution and?
it depends on if it's
Creation.
distribution or possession. If you're getting into creation, you're probably getting charged with more than just possession because that's now a criminal sexual conduct in its own right.
So my kids will always ask questions. If I send it to like 4 friends,
Mhm.
is it just gonna be 20 total? Or could it be like 20 for you sending it to you, 20 for sending it to you, 20 for sending it to you? Like, where does that go?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That depends on which court you're in.
Okay.
So some courts, depends on what law applies and which court you're in. Almost all crimes, there's something that's known as concurrent sentencing. And for concurrent sentencing, if you're convicted of 5 20-year offenses, you're going to serve all of those at one time. So you're going to serve a maximum of 20 years, not a maximum of 100 years. Now, criminal sexual conduct depends on the type of criminal sexual conduct that's going on, but consecutive sentencing is a possibility for, yes. It depends on where and it depends on what.
So let's say we're doing this and then you get convicted at 18, they'll put you in a juvenile facility until you're 18, and then at 18, then you move to the
So this is,
Steakhouse.
yeah, this is a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Because kids are like, oh, I'm just gonna go to juvie, and then when I need to eat them out. And I'm like, I don't think that's how that works.
that is not how that
Okay,
works.
that's right.
So
That's what I wanted to check, like,
this is actually something that I cut from my presentation for time, so you're.
oh, I'm so sorry.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying the opposite. I'm so glad I did it because I kind of nerd out over this.
I do too, and this is
Great
my
to know.
class, so I get excited, and I want to make sure they present the right information to them, so I'm so excited.
So an individual who is charged with we'll call it a run-of-the-mill felony in juvenile court can be punished until their 19th birthday. Okay. Then there are some cases where individuals can be punished very severe crimes as a juvenile until their 21st birthday. Then there are cases where individuals are charged both as a juvenile and an adult. In those cases, if they succeed, so to speak, in rehabilitation, they don't screw up their punishment, if you will. The court will only impose the juvenile sentence, and they will dismiss the adult charge. If they don't succeed, they violate probation, or they're causing more trouble, they're charged with more crimes, then the court could impose the adult sentence. And obviously the adult sentence will keep them a lot longer than their 21st birthday. Bless you. Then there are times, bless you, they're called waiver cases. And in waiver cases, someone can be completely charged as an adult, regardless of their age as a juvenile. So it just depends on how the prosecutor's office charges someone. It depends on whether or not they're going to do that, depends on the prosecutor that you're in front of. When I was in Wayne, it took some really horrific stuff to charge as an adult. Yeah, absolutely. Great question, and thank you for letting me nerd out. Okay, so here's a question that I've received from a parent recently, actually. Their child was the recipient of an unwanted naked photo. So they were now unwittingly and unwillingly in possession of child sexually abusive material. What do you do?
Delete.
Yes. What do you do next?
Then you delete. You delete it the second time, but you delete it as many times as it needs to be deleted.
Right.
Because if they take your phone and they look at your phone, because they will take your phone and look at it, they'll be able to see that it was an immediate delete, or it was never opened, or it was how long it was in your possession. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct, yeah. So the law enforcement can do what's known as a phone dump, and they will see this is also good knowledge for everyone. If they choose to do a phone dump, law enforcement can see every single motion that you have ever made on your phone.
Forever.
Forever.
Like you could have done this a year ago and you still will have it even though it was
Yes.
deleted.
That is correct. So you're absolutely right. Step 1, delete. Step 2, delete from your recently deleted. Step 3, delete from your iCloud. And step 4, this is just my advice, call the sender's mother, tell them what's going on, the sender's father, and just say, hey, this is a conversation you probably need to have because there's larger implications than just, this is beyond a moral question. This is now a child porn question. This is important for parents to think about because families often share iCloud accounts. So parents might not realize, but they could be in possession of child pornography. This is a tough conversation to have with your kids, but it's a very important conversation to have with your kids. Okay, that's a lot of
Is there an equivalent for us who don't use an iPhone?
I've only ever had an iPhone. I don't know.
Google saves
Google,
me.
Yeah.
We had
Google Drive, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
Google. Mike, we're gonna go.
Google Photos.
No, I don't. It's fine.
You gotta be backed up somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't have iCloud.
There's gonna
Do
be
I
an
share with
Android
anyone?
cloud.
You gotta have something, Mike. We'll
Okay,
find it.
we'll find
We'll
out.
find it.
It's like an external hard drive.
Take so long. It's great.
Okay, so that's a good transition from a really tough topic into some better news on that tough topic, which is everyone is always very scared of the sex offender registry. In 2024, the Michigan State Police, who is in charge of administering the sex offender registry, made a decision that they would not put juveniles who were adjudicated to be guilty of criminal sexual conduct on the sex offender registry. If you're not charged as an adult, or you're not punished as an adult in those double cases, cannot be put on the sex offender registry in Michigan as a juvenile. So that is good news.
Even if it's first degree or third degree?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So, to wrap up this joyous topic, it's easy for me to say this as a third. But there were Saturday mornings where I would go into the office and I would sign warrants. And I would read criminal sexual conduct warrants. And for someone who is just looking at the black and white, from an officer who's just trying to get home and is rushing through the report, it can be really challenging to tell the difference between some behavior that is part of growing up and behavior that is manipulative and coercive and can cause lifelong trauma. Like I said, it's easy for me to say this at 30, but the best advice I can give is just don't. It is you might get a prosecutor who just doesn't see the truth in the report. You never want to put yourself in that situation. So let's move on to a topic that's more fun, which is literally anything. And we're going to choose alcohol. So I'm sure everyone has heard of the MIP, minor in possession. Who does an MIP apply to? Anyone under the age of 21. An MIP can happen in all sorts of ways. Technically speaking, mom and daughter share a car. Mom goes to Kroger, leaves a couple of bottles of wine in the back seat. Daughter gets in the car the next day, sees the bottles of wine, doesn't take them out, gets pulled over, daughter can get an MIP. Okay.
Had it happen at school last year. Older brother left a six-pack of beer in the back seat when he was home from spring break. Daughter drove it to school here at Seaholm. It was in the back wheel well behind the driver's seat in her car.
Did they see it like walking through the parking lot?
The parking lot attendant, security guard, saw it walking through the parking lot. So
Should have a booze on that.
just doing his job, keeping us safe.
So that's one way you can get an MIP. Another way you can get an MIP, having an alcoholic beverage in your hand, even if you haven't taken a single sip and you blow zeros, you are still in possession. The punishments for getting an MIP, not as severe as you would think, severe because you have to disclose it on your college applications. You have to disclose it to jobs, things of that nature. Actually, a more severe misdemeanor is using a fake ID to try and purchase marijuana, alcohol, nicotine, tobacco. Even if the child is unsuccessful, it's just a bad idea. So I'd like to transition now to takeaway number 3, falling under the MIP umbrella, which is, does medical amnesty ever actually exist? When I was in high school, it was like, oh, well, we'll just call the cops if we get busted, man. And then we can tell them that somebody's sick and then we get out of it. Medical amnesty. Yes, and also no. So medical amnesty is real. But if a police officer approaches the door and someone answers, a young person answers and says, oh, thank God you're here, officer, we need your help. The prosecutor's going to say, no, that's not medical amnesty. the young person has to make the first contact. They have to be the one to call emergency services, and it'll eventually be evaluated by a prosecutor and by the judge as to whether or not the contact with law enforcement was as a result of the young person really trying to get help. But this is why it's takeaway number 3 from my presentation is someone's life is always more important, right? It's important that young people know that this actually does exist. It's important that young people know that they really can call the police, and it's important that they have this mindset.
So if they're at a party and someone is like super sick and they call the ambulance or police, then they wouldn't be prosecuted in most cases, is what you're saying?
So it's going to be up to the prosecutor to look at the facts and say, you know, look, this young person saved another person's life. Now, if you're just a bystander who's having a beer at that same party, you probably wouldn't be as lucky. So I don't know if you can somehow get the word out, hey, leave because I'm using the medical amnesty exception.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. That's one exception to the MIP, a couple of other exceptions to the MIP. One is for religious ceremonies. I think everybody knows if you want to have, it's called Kaddish, or you want to do communion. It's not Kaddish. Sorry, I'm wrong about that. Anyway, the other exception is, and this applies to people who have slightly older children, if you consume alcohol in a place where it is legal, based on your age, to consume that alcohol, say Windsor, and then you return to the United States still with alcohol in your body, that is not correct. So if you go to a 19th birthday party and you're 19 years of age, come back, you won't be charged with minor in possession, at least under state law, because where you consume the alcohol is legal. So
You have to prove that though?
yeah, probably. I mean, they could charge you and you could just say, you know, I went to Windsor, and the federal government's pretty good at keeping details on who comes into the country through the Windsor border, so it shouldn't be too bad. If you could do the next slide, please. Okay, so here's another warning to parents. Don't think that you're the cool parent because you invite your children's friends over to drink. That is up to $1,000 fine and potentially 60 days in jail. I'm sure everyone here remembers that minors are really bad at drinking and do not know their limits. And if you happen to be the parent that provides alcohol that results in someone's death, you're looking at 10 years. So don't be like Amy Poulter. Okay, so I know I said I was young when I started, but now I'm going to say that I'm old because there's been a change in the law since I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was very concerned about what was known as an MIA, not an MIP. It was a minor in attendance. Even though I wasn't drinking, the fact that I was in the house where alcohol was present means that I could get punished with a misdemeanor. So the MIA is no longer a law in itself, but you could still get an MIA under the name of an MIP. What does that mean? If you could go to the next slide, please. Just because your child is not drinking does not mean that they can't get an MIP, because MIP, the last letter there is possession. And possession means, do they have the right to control something, right? So does one of the friends say, hey, talking to the police, I brought booze for the entire party and your child was at that party? Well, that means that they had the right to take a sip, which means that they had the right to control it, they had the right, that they possessed it, and that's a minor in possession. Possession can be joint. So if there are 5 of us sitting around a table and we are all juveniles, and instead of cupcakes, we have a single beer, just one beer, all of us could be charged with minor in possession, even though we would consider that single alcoholic beverage to be an individual serving. If your child finds out that there are alcohol or drugs at a party, that's my takeaway number 4. So almost everything that I just explained about alcohol applies equally to marijuana, nicotine, and tobacco. Obviously, the difference is the age at which you can buy nicotine and tobacco, but possession rules apply. Marijuana is punished slightly with less stringency than alcohol is, but Nonetheless, you don't want to find yourself in that type of situation.
So you said using a fake ID is more serious than the MIP. What kind of punishments are they looking at,
93 days.
no matter what?
No, that's the maximum.
Okay.
What if you buy it without a fake ID?
If you just don't present,
Yes.
yeah, that's a great question. Lansing thought about that. The statute's pretty broad.
Okay.
So it's, you,
I mean, then you're in possession. but-
correct, yeah, that's right.
What if, I have two more questions.
Yeah, please.
If your child buys it from people.
Your child that's a
they
juvenile?
then be- Yes, could
Okay.
then they be like the parent that's charged?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
And then what if your child has not been drinking but is driving people home that have?
Is there alcohol in the car besides the alcohol that's in
Let's
people's
say,
bodies?
let's say no.
They couldn't be,
Okay.
because that's not, they do not have the right to control alcohol that is in someone else's body.
But if there was like a can in the car, then they would be.
Empty can or full can?
Oh my goodness.
Well, let's go
Let's
empty
choose your
can
own
first, because we know the full can is not in possession.
Yeah.
Empty can is,
So empty can, the prosecutor charges, knows they have a crummy case, you call me, and we probably win. Full can, that's a minor in possession. So, thank you very much. I'm sure I've gone over my time, but I had 4 takeaways that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And I started this conversation by asking, why am I here? And I gave you an answer at the beginning, but an answer at the end is similar, but it's a little bit different. I'm here because when I was a kid, I wish I knew these things. I'm here because when I was a prosecutor, I wish that parents knew these things. And now that I'm a defense attorney, it would actually help keep me employed if you guys didn't know these things.
I take it all back, delete.
But no, I'm here, and this is exactly what we said earlier. I'm here to help one kid, right? If one of you goes home and tells one of your children and it stops them from speaking to the police or sending a picture or whatever it may be, it helps them make the right decision, then I'm a happy camper. So thank you for really good questions and for giving me probably more time than you told me I was allowed
Oh,
to
it was
have.
perfect, actually, perfect time.
Oh, okay,
It's
excellent.
7:45-ish probably.
Okay, excellent.
So that was great. Question for you. Do you ever do, like assemblies for kids? Would that be something you could somehow work on a kid presentation? Because what great information is that?
We do a bit,
Someday.
we have our SRO talk to the seniors after first semester about things like consent and some
Okay.
other things, but.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I think some of this was great. I mean, you sort of presented 2 things, like what happens if you're in a bad situation, but the other half of it is like, let's not do these things so that
Yeah.
you're not in a bad situation.
Right.
And that would be great to hear even younger, I think.
Yeah.
So I know, like back in, it had to be early 2000s, like pre-my work time, Dave Gorsica came out with a little video that he did on child criminal sexual conduct. Now, we still show it because 90% of it's still the same, but it's so outdated. I wish somebody would come out with a new video because it's so powerful, because we go over what does consent mean, what is age consent, what does this child pornography law mean, because the kids just, they don't get it.
Right.
And, I've had to use a couple cases here from Seaholm from the 1990s that I know about. We're not using names or anything, but talking about how these things are real and they do happen, and it happens all the time. We just don't always hear about it, especially with the girls being charged just as much as the guys sometimes are. It's
Yep.
not a thing.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to make a video, call me and I'll show you.
Okay.
Maybe Dave Corsica's video, you
No,
can get it with the new laws.
That sounds, I appreciate it. And yes, I, absolutely, if you're ever, I'm available. I'm talking to juniors at Career Day about
Oh,
being
great.
an attorney.
That's super.
I've been in contact with Mr. Pavlov about talking at the Law and U class. So if you guys are looking for someone to speak on the criminal justice system, I'm always available. I'm happy to use this resource.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any more questions you guys have? Your turn. You can leave.
Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, yeah.
All right, thanks for the
Yeah,
time.
you're
Nice
so
to meet
welcome.
you all.
Nice
Nice
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I will not be here on career day, so I'm sorry.
Well, you have a career, that makes sense.
I am busy at the, that is a negotiation day for the teacher union contracts.
Yeah, you're busy.
Well, good luck, and sorry that I'll miss you. But, yeah.
Thanks a
We'll
lot.
find you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys. Bye-bye. Okay, we will get going with the meeting and I will be quick, talk quick.
Yeah.
Have a cupcake, round two. Elena, I'm gonna put you on first, to see, approval of the January 14th minutes. No pressure, but did everybody have time to read that? Anybody?
No
Um,
questions.
Okay, and then I just need a motion to approve the minutes.
We don't have to do that.
Oh, we don't do that anymore? Okay.
No.
Sorry, beginner still. Do you need anything from me, Elena?
Nope, those minutes were posted to Facebook and to YouTube for the recording. And we've had no electronic votes since then.
Okay, we're good then. And then I will just give a little report. We actually, for the month of February, did not have an official PTA meeting, but we had a joint meeting with the middle school and with Groves, with the Birmingham Bloomfield Community Coalition on Parenting with Insight, which was a great presentation. It talked about alcohol, drugs, vaping, the caffeine drinks that everybody's raging about and using these days. We had about, I think with all of us included 45 people at the event, so it was really well attended. And I think it was a worthwhile event. We have a document that I forwarded around to people who are interested that I can forward to you with information about that event, if you'd like to hear that. And I think we're going to try to see if we can partner a little bit, a couple times a year with the BBCC to come up with some more parenting events. The most fabulous part was we had a kid panel. So it was kids from Bloomfield schools, from IA, from Groves, and they all came, all 5 of them, and talked about answering these questions that are going on and what's going on within the schools. So just really, really insightful. Didn't you think, Mike? He was there with me as well. So that happened in February. Then I actually went to the council meeting last night, and there are some positions available there that I'll get into. If anybody is interested in those, you can contact me. We have an e-board committee position of a grants coordinator open, but pretty much everything else is filled, which is awesome. So everybody was pretty happy with the jobs that they had this year. And if you're on the e-board, a member of the e-board, they get to help decide on how the grants are used. So that's one of the perks of being on that board, which is pretty cool. Then we have committee chairs that are available. We have a fundraising chair that we didn't fill this year or last year that if anybody's interested in helping with that position is available. And then I'm trying to figure out how we can get some students involved, because since we are now the PTSA, S means student, I'm thinking about possibly talking to my board about a student involvement chair, which would be a new position. So we'll speak about that. And if anybody's interested in that, please let me know. If you need any information about those positions, you can feel free to contact me. And then to volunteer for Teacher Appreciation Week, there will be a sign up coming out, but Kristen Bogarts and Erin Hitchcock are in charge of that. And then back to the open PTA Council positions. There's a position for treasurer open, a legislative chair, and then the Northern VP. And it's not intimidating at all. It's just meetings we have once a month. And it's actually kind of cool because Mbika, the superintendent, is there and she tells us what's going on in the district. And it's every PTA president from the district. All schools go to the meetings and you just learn about what's going on a little bit ahead of time. And you're basically the liaison between the PTAs and the council, which is great. Volunteer of the Year is coming up. We're going to send out a link for nominations soon. I don't have that link yet, but we will get that to you within the next few weeks. After spring break, I guess I need to get to that too sooner than later. After spring break is when the voting closes. And this year we're selecting one person. In the past, we've selected two, but we've gone to all schools selecting one this year. And that person will be recognized at the district award ceremony. The district award ceremony will be held at Grove, May 12th at 6:30 p.m. 3 Seaholm students will be recognized for the Reflections Award, which is cool. The PTA presidents will be sworn in. And we're hoping to have 2 to 3 representatives from the Michigan PTA there as well. And this event is an invite-only event, so watch for that to come. Jen, are you on the call? I don't think you are.
No, she got stuck in traffic.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
We will not have a
the
budget
construction.
report tonight. Jen was stuck in traffic. Thank you. And Mike, I'll jump to you.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Miss Getz's thunder,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
but I will just say that, the spring is on us in weather and in realistic ways here at Seaholm. Spring sports started yesterday. We still have one winter sport left. The boys are swimming this weekend at the state meet, so that's very exciting. But spring sports practices have begun. Spring testing is next month. So for all of our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, we have some testing coming up. So that is something that's very important. The final weekend of the musical is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you haven't had a chance to go see Legally Blonde, I will be there Saturday night if anyone wants to, come hang out. And it's just, the winter's kind of our quiet period. So the spring, we have lots of stuff going on. We're going to have a lot of events coming. So make sure you're looking at the district and school calendars. And, between awards nights and graduation and lots of different events. So just stay on top of all the exciting things that are going to happen, including charity week.
Oh, that's my cue. I'm Katie Getz, for those of you who do not know me. I am co-advisor with Shannon Feliciano. We do have several activities coming up that I want to talk about. First will be charity week, then we'll talk about prom, and then we'll talk about a couple senior things that are coming up. We are offering 14 different activities for students to participate in charity week this year. We are raising money for, and the students in our student congress class voted, and they wanted to do Care House of Oakland County, which is an advocacy program for children that have been abused. And they've been in the news a lot lately with the family from Pontiac. So the kids were kind of excited that our charity is like big time. So they're pretty excited. We like to try and keep local charities so that we were helping our Oakland County community, if not our Birmingham community. So we've offered this year, because we know parents dish out a lot of money, and here's a Venmo here, and here's $5 there, and all that. So this year we came together and we put together a student charity week all activity pass. And so we're charging you $50 for that, and you save about $12 on that. But that gets the students the ability to participate in almost everything except for the pay to pause and the teacher jail and bail. But we have a couple new activities coming up this year. So we have the 24-second challenge that Mr. Adams brought to our boys basketball team. So we will do that during our lunches on Monday. We're going to have green bagel sales on Monday also. We got a great deal from, I want to say it was Einstein Bagels. They were really supportive of this. So we'll have those on Monday. Tuesday is our big, huge day, which is pay to pause. The teachers or the kids pay to pause class, or to for the teachers to provide an incentive. So like I know there's a couple tests going on like in math, and so the teachers that come together and allow a partner test or use one page of notes, or so they incentivize something like, I'm doing my lifeguarding, so I made my lifeguarders, they're swimming a 600 that day, and so they're like, oh, we'll have the money for you. So then they get to have a free day in the pool or work on their saves, so they'll be able to do stuff like that. Backed by popular demand, the student DoorDash. Kids love that because we're not allowed to DoorDash here to the school for one day during A and B lunch. We are going to allow DoorDash to come in, and our student congress kids sit outside and collect the DoorDash and then deliver it to the students for a $5 charge if they pre-buy it. Now the crazy thing is, last year we made more money on the day of sales, which is $10. I'll never understand that because that means you just paid $40 for McDonald's to show up. So I don't get it. Talk to your kids about getting this pass because that DoorDash pass is included in that charity thing. We do
So
have.
just the privilege, not the food.
Not the
Still
food,
have to
not the
pay
food,
for
you gotta pay for the food and the delivery, but, just to allow it to come into the school, but that was one of our biggest fundraisers last year, we made almost $600 or $700, I mean, it was, besides the pay cost, I mean, it was a huge deal. We have a raffle that is going on, so like this week, we're sending out, in a newsletter a link, because the kids have been out, asking for donations, and they've gotten quite a few, but there's a couple things that aren't there, so we're gonna see if some parents wanted to donate to those raffle baskets, and, so it's like $10 for an arm length, 2 arm length, or wingspan is like $20, and, it's just a fun, or you buy one raffle ticket for $1. This year, we're going to host a duck race, where the students buy a $5 duck, and, during.
It's not a real duck, right?
No.
We're not raising real ducks.
No, but that would be so.
They would not be cool.
It would fly away. But what we're doing is we're going over to one of our local rivers over here, and we're going to dump them in the water during the ones that were sold during advisory, and we'll live stream them making their way down the river, and whoever makes it to the end line first will win a gift card. So that's new this year for us. We have the annual belly flop contest on Wednesday, which brings in $1,200 to $1,500 every year. The kids absolutely love it. They come during their lunch. They eat their lunch upstairs, make a huge mess, and we clean up after, but that is a huge one. And then we've added in a duck throw where they could buy a duck or purchase a duck for $1 and toss it into the pool, and it has to go into a ring. If it gets into the ring, they want a $5 gift card. But the duck flop costs. Chuck a duck, and that sounds so good. Okay, so Powder Buff, we are bringing back. We're working on the times because the sports season had started, so we're seeing if we could delay the start time. It was supposed to start right after school, but I'm working with Mr. Frank to see if we could finagle it a little bit later so all the athletes can participate. Power Buff is the males version of volleyball, teams of 6. The juniors are playing the seniors, and they get guaranteed 4 games. They do a little bit of a round robin, and then the winners of the bracket will then play the teachers in the assembly on Thursday.
They'll lose to the teachers.
Lose to the teachers. Well, it depends who's in there.
The next day.
The next day. So they play Wednesday. We get a winner Wednesday, and then they play again on Thursday. And the last thing, another big event that we have is our ice cream social during lunch in the 5 and 6 hours. We walk around with 2 flavors of ice cream and a bunch of toppings that they get to choose. New this year is our music grams, where we have some of our band members and some of our teachers who will walk around on their prep hour and go into classes and sing some wonderful little old school songs, or maybe they play something nice in band or the fight song, or whatever their little heart desires. So if a class can get $5, they get 1 song, $8 for 2 songs, and $10 for 3. And then Friday, oh no, but I forgot about also Thursday, we're doing our jail-a-thon, where kids can raise money to put their teacher in jail and either have a substitute. And then there's one other caveat that we haven't talked to Mr. Whipper about, so we're not going to bring that up quite yet. It's really surprising.
Yeah, I like that. Just when I hear on camera, that's great.
Stay us, Mike, stay us. No, it's nothing painful where they're in trouble or getting out of class or anything like that. So, and then Friday, because it's the day before spring break, we know that a lot of kids are not going to be there. Not much is going on. We're announcing raffle winners. We'll have leftover ice cream sales. But one thing they brought is they want during A&D lunch to have a paper airplane throwing contest. So the kids will be able to make a paper airplane for $1, go up to the pool, like the balcony that looks out into the hallway, not inside the pool, but the outside, and throw a paper airplane. And each lunch, whoever goes the farthest will win some gift cards. So they can throw it whenever they want. We'll mark on the floor who's the winner, and so it'll be just fun.
Wow, I want to come.
So yeah, so we're very excited about this week's charity week. The kids have been working really hard on their advertisements that you guys probably don't see unless you follow us on Instagram or are walking through the building. But they're really excited to kind of get going. So they're starting their sales now. Number 2 event for us is prom. That is coming up. It is scheduled for Friday, May 9th. Doors open at 6 p.m. Dinner is served at 7. Dance begins at 8 and dance ends at 10. We are doing it this year at the Royal Oak Music Theater, and our theme is Under the Sea. Not Royal Oak Music
I'll say
Theater.
that's
Farmers Market. Yeah,
Farmers market, I'm like, that's news,
Market.
that's news to me, that I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah, I'm
on
glad
video.
we all did. Royal Oak Farmers Market. We have wonderful decorations coming in. We're having our food catered. We're actually working on our catering for our food right now, but the juniors are very excited to make this a very fun event. And we are very excited. Tickets will be going on sale, unfortunately, because we have to have our numbers in to the caterer. They will, we have to sell tickets the week after spring break that we get back. So I think we're gonna, because that Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday are all crazy, we probably will extend it to that also, that Monday and Tuesday. But we are gonna start selling that Monday that we get back from spring break. And we know it stinks coming right off of spring break and then come up with that money, but it is like the venue requires. So it's either we hit you before spring break or we hit you after, and we apologize it. But the venue needs their numbers and the catering needs their numbers too. And then they send us a final bill and we're all set. And then the last is our senior events that are going on. The last week of the seniors, they will be, doing their senior only spirit week. So they do plan those days. So be looking out for those. We do plan on doing.
If they do a senior only, anything but a backpack, there are no live things allowed to come to school.
And no boats.
So
And
no
boats.
children, no younger siblings, no dog with a backpack.
Yes.
So no live animals or human beings allowed for anything but a backpack.
Yes.
And you think that I'm just joking, I am not.
Yeah, it's a liability and it's just too much. It's not good. We don't need to be pulling kids out of school either. They need to be in school. We will do the senior sunset in addition. At that time, we'll have a pizza dinner with some salad. We'll also have games out on the softball diamond typically, and we're doing everything right there. We have an ice cream truck that comes up. We'll do our senior superlatives there. We'll reveal those there. And then we'll go watch the sunset for the last half hour, 45 minutes. So that information will come out probably the beginning of May, but I wanted to let everybody know that is coming. That is still something that we're planning. And that's it.
That's great. Kate, do you have anything for legislative?
Yeah, hi, thank you. All the school activities sound super duper fun. This is less fun, but as your legislative chair, I keep my ear to the ground to the Michigan PTA and the National PTA. And there are 2 action alerts that I wanted to make everybody aware of. An action alert is where the National PTA or Michigan PTA is urging us to contact our elected politicians in Congress to ask them to take action on a particular issue. And there's 2 right now that they've put out. The first one is they're asking us to urge our politicians to support a bill that protects all of the programs and funding associated with the Department of Education, just because there's of the recent news about dismantling the programs within the Department of Education. And then the second call to action is along similar lines. There is a bill that's been introduced. It's called Educational Choice for Children. And this one, the National PTA is asking us to urge our elected politicians to reject that bill. It's basically like a school voucher program. And the National PTA's position is that if school vouchers become part of the landscape in Michigan, that could hurt the funding that's coming to public schools. 80% of students in the United States attend public schools. So their position is that providing vouchers for students to go to private schools would put our funding at risk. So if you are interested in reaching out to your politicians, you can just Google National PTA Voter Voice, and it will take you to the page where there's the action alerts. There's another one about gun violence, but that one's older. It's been out there for a couple of years. So I mentioned to you the two new ones, but you can write your Congress people about all of the action alerts. You type in your zip code, and like for me, it went to Haley Stevens and Alyssa Slack, and it took just a couple of minutes. And you can add a personal message if you'd like as well. Otherwise, it just takes a couple of minutes to send off the templated letters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, grant coordinator Christina couldn't be with us tonight, but she didn't have any information to report. And committee reports. For First Fridays, we have about 50 more staff left to cover, so we're still trying to get some donations there for April and May. Teacher treats, we're complete for the year, so if we're going to donate to that, donate to First Fridays instead. And I wanted to thank the Forberg family for the February Valentine's treats. Those were very cute. Social media and marketing, everybody's starting to get ready for senior events. So we need to watch all the channels for that. We're going to start promoting on e-news and Instagram and Facebook, all those senior events that Katie talked about, plus additional events. So that's the best place to check is e-news for all that, or the social media spots. If you're not sure you purchased something, please check your receipts for e-funds first before you go talking to the committee chairs for the all-night party and grad night, etc. They are getting a lot of calls right now, and they just wanted you to check that first. The all-night party will be $100 a ticket this year. The price will increase after spring break. That was the same as last year. Graduation and post-grad yard signs are going to be offered. An email is supposed to go out today with all this information on it, or if not today, this week. Chaperones, if you'd like to chaperone for the graduation party, there will be a note sent out in early May to all the parents that are seniors. And contact Julie Soderwell if you have any questions about that. She's heading all this up. Memory tiles are $100 again this year. Michelle Francis is the contact there. She's working on a digital form. You can use the old manual form, or the digital form will come out to all. And the deadline to get these tiles wrapped up is by mid-April. The orders should be placed so that you can see them on the wall, hopefully by the end of the year. We'll do our best. And that's pretty much all that I have. Our next meeting will be April 8th. Does anyone else have any comments, concerns? Katie?
So the PE department met yesterday, the elementary, middle school, and the high school, one representative from each. And so we are doing a Michigan Moves Month, and it's a national movement in our state of Michigan. And so we're offering different activities. We're going to try and have a district-wide event. We're going to try and host a school event. So like Horton's doing a walk-a-thon, so they're going to walk for a half hour and then stop and get ice cream. What's that school? Greenfield's going to do a tour day. Greenfield, and they're going to go on a bike ride. So we're going to come up with something for here. But one thing we talked about is trying to get a staff competition going at each school. And so what the PE department would like to do is have a competition for the amount of steps that we could take in the month of May. And so we were looking to see if we could give a prize out. And so my thought here was maybe pitting the departments against each other and having a little competition for the average amount of steps that they can take. Because like the PE department only has 3 people, the art department only has 2, So if we took the average amount of steps.
What are you at?
Not a lot right now. I'm probably close to 5,000 today, but sitting today.
I got 15,072.
Yeah, well, admin might kill me.
Admin might win. Throw that out there.
But what we'd like to do at the end of the month is then announce the winner and then provide them with like a lunch or something at the end. And so, we don't always have funds. And so we were looking to see if the PTA had anything that they'd be willing to help us out with. I don't have specific numbers. I don't have anything like that. But if that was something that you guys could consider maybe, working with us on, and, Mike will put the rest, whatever.
I don't have the money,
But we would like to.
but
try and-
when the admin win, that's fine. I'll let you know what we won. There's only 3 of us, so it'll be a small bill in comparison to like the English department.
I know, there's a lot of English, a lot of math.
When do you need to know, Kate?
April 30th,
Okay, oh, okay. No problem.
May,
We'll chat
maybe
about it.
May 29th.
I'm
you know,
sure we can probably find.
Yeah, so it would just be something nice, and we're trying to, keep our, and we thought if we could keep moving ourselves, the kids would also want. Works more in the elementary schools than the high school, but we thought, how can we get the high school kind of involved, so that's something we're looking.
Good idea. I like it too. Anything else? Anyone? Okay, motion to adjourn? Second?
Third.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. Hope to see you on April 8th. Have a good night. Have a good week.